brought up the Koch Institute, right?
Yes.
So what do you think about the ethanol subsidies that Bush put into place? That was a regulation that caused riots worldwide, increased hunger, and
So you just said riots worldwide.
Yeah, caused riots worldwide.
I've not
Food
personally
riots.
heard anything about food riots worldwide.
So ethanol subsidies was a regulation put in place in 2008 by Bush, or 2007 or 2008 by Bush, and ethanol subsidies increased food prices worldwide, energy prices worldwide, and that increases carbon emissions. If people have to produce goods more or faster to meet the needs, the basic needs of the people, physiological needs, then that increases CO2 emissions. And
Yes.
so regulation, should it be prioritized over the free market taking care of this? So far, according to the ethanol subsidies in 2008, in 2015, the Paris Climate Agreement, these aren't realistic ways of solving problems. So far, capitalism is the best way to raise people out of poverty and get people out of their own industrial revolutions.
Not by the federal government.
Just to clarify, I don't think anyone said that we should go to like full communism or something to address climate change. I don't think, it's a fallacy to say that to address climate change and to put in policies at a governmental level that address this, that we have to somehow take our nation and turn it into some sort of different financial system. But I think that it's very important to note that ethanol policy was not changed by George W. Bush in 2008. That's been a part of the Farm Bill, which has been introduced to Congress every year and reapproved every year for the last 2 decades. That was instituted in the 90s. The Koch Foundation maybe has some sort of interest with the Farm Bill, though Koch brothers are both from Midwestern states. The Farm Bill tends to be very popular there. But I don't think that specific instance of a poorly implemented government policy, which doesn't take into account the free market, should be looked at in context of the entire environmental.
So how can we trust that these regulations will be effective if that one wasn't effective, the Paris Climate Agreement wasn't effective? Why do you think that it will be beneficial if so far the policy, and also I think you're a democratic socialist, correct?
I wouldn't characterize it.
So that doesn't really have any bearing on the
It doesn't? Well, I mean, your party, agrees with the Green New Deal.
I would say there's debate entirely about the Green New Deal.
Okay.
I'm not personally in favor of the Green New Deal.
Okay. So if these policies, the extreme policies that are accepted by people who want to regulate the environment are promoted, then why can we really trust that these will be effective if they're not based on reality?
So first off, I think that the first point that I brought up about this carbon tax, the whole point of the carbon tax is the idea that it interacts with the free market in a way that it doesn't hamper its movement. Second off, since we were talking about rhetorical fallacies and rhetorical methods, I just wanted to know if you've heard of something called creeping normality.
No.
That's the idea wherein a politician or another figure of significant public power endorses an idea that might seem on the cusp to be outside of the norm, simply because it takes the debate about that subject and stretches it further towards that area. The Green New Deal, in its most basic essence, is an attempt by United States politicians to deal with the crisis that we are currently facing. Now, the policy details in the Green New Deal might not all be scientifically
Don't you
sound.
think that creates people saying, or makes it so people want to be really contrary to these new ideas?
I think there will always be people who will be contrary.
But more extreme, for sure, right?
But the Green New Deal in particular, I think that, first off, there is no consensus in the Democratic Party over whether it should be passed. There was a motion recently.
Presidential candidates agree to it?
There are 15 Democratic candidates currently.
At the time, there were 4.
In different extents. Amy Klobuchar, the candidate I support for 2020, says she supports the ideas behind the Green New Deal. She says she supports the efforts behind the Green New Deal, but she said she did not support the Green New Deal in particular. Several of the candidates have said things like that. Yes, several candidates have said things to that effect, but of course they've been misrepresented in some cases in partisan media.
Sweet. Okay, so your stance isn't that we should prioritize the environment over. You think that it should work with the economy, which is essentially prioritizing the economy. So you agree with this?
I think that when they do come into conflict, then the environment should be prioritized. I think that, however, in a vast majority of cases, we can use the economy to help burgeon.
Okay, so
Have you considered the potential problems that could arise within the economy by prioritizing the environment in the first place?
Well, I don't think their stance. It seems like their stance isn't to prioritize the environment if you think it works with the economy.
If it's possible to put policies into place that benefit both, I think that we should put policies into place that benefit both. There's no downside either.
And he even was talking about a carbon tax.
Yeah.
That actually
I don't know enough about that.
That stimulates the economy. 20 to 50% of the revenue of a carbon tax we put back into the economy, writing checks to individuals, and it can be used to strengthen democracy. For example, having revenue go to individuals in states that have consistently higher voter turnouts, that increases people's desire to participate in our democracy. So not only is it stimulating the economy, but people's participation.
You have 5 more minutes, so start.
Can I ask the audience a question? Is that okay?
It's more of a debate between you guys. Yeah?
No, you should stay here.
Yeah, so the discussion stays here.
I'm not allowed to ask the audience a question.
Okay. You can
But,
ask me and I'll reply for
Did
them.
you say that you're from Alaska?
I am from Alaska, yeah.
Do your parents get a check from the state government every year because of this oil fund that they
Yeah,
have?
they do.
Do you not agree that that check that they get?
I honestly don't know much about the PFD. I'll be real.
Okay. So the check from the Alaskan state government is because of the natural resource that they have, and a similar sort of idea would be in terms of this carbon fee. The most popular and the most effective model is something called fee and dividend, which the Citizens Climate Lobby has proposed, and that would be the exact same sort of case where there is a no questions asked check delivered to every American household, and that check is meant to counterbalance the revenue that the government gets from something that it wouldn't necessarily normally be able to make revenue off.
Okay.
So I think that every Alaskan among us and every United States citizen should be in favor of, well, money to every American household. Especially if you can also accomplish the
I don't
exact
know
sort of
enough about that,
environmental, the exact sort of environmental focused goals that we wanted to.
So,
If I may ask, what does that have to do with prioritizing the environment over the economy?
I'm saying that in this case, there are lawmakers who have suggested that there is no possible way to prioritize the environment without prioritizing the economy. Dana Rohrabacher, for instance, is a U.S. representative. He's one of the founders of this sort of modern idea that when climate change comes into conflict with the United States economy, there are no possible policies that can be implemented that would strengthen.
how long has carbon tax, I'm just curious, like how long has carbon tax been a thing in the United States?
Carbon taxes have never been a thing.
Oh, I thought you said
I'm
earlier.
saying they
We were
have been in
talking
other
about-
countries. France really poorly tried to institute one.
Okay,
Um,
so
And
do we have good examples of it?
we do have good examples of it. The Canadian province of British Columbia put into place a carbon tax.
But they're increasing carbon emissions. Canada's increasing carbon emissions.
But that's exactly why they have this issue
So how
that they're trying to
come
address.
we're more effective without the tax or the carbon credits than Canada?
The United States is unequivocally not decreasing carbon emissions.
It's not.
It's not.
No.
Every source
We
I
said
found says going down
You named
the
one
last
source.
2 years. I've found a lot of sources. I have like 40 things pulled up on my phone.
That's very nice. I just Carbon Brief, the World Research Institute, the Brookings Foundation, the New York Times.
I also have a
Columbia School
research from the
How much is it going up?
What? I can't cite you exact numbers on the number of tons that the United States has continued to emit. I can tell you that the trend line has continued to increase. I can tell you that it is not linear, that it's exponential, that it's been increasing at an exponential
Can I
rate.
challenge you to source it like you challenged me to source mine?
I just listed 5 sources.
Yeah, American Enterprise Institute.
Well, let's lay aside this,
Or the
this
specific,
relevant
the
and
specific number.
let's move to closing arguments because it looks like you guys are just
Going
spinning your
this way.
wheels here
Yeah.
in the sources. So if you want to give a closing argument, then you're here.
It's probably an important detail.
Right?
What?
Sounds like an important detail.
I can look it up for you.
Nah, it's okay.
I invite all of you to go home afterward and look up how much the United States has increased in carbon emissions. Climate change is real. There is a scientific consensus that the Earth has been warming for the last century and a half, with that warming accelerating in the past 50 years as the Industrial Revolution has continued to put more emissions into our atmosphere. Greenhouse gases, especially CO2, are seen more in our atmosphere these days than the last 800,000 years, based off of climate proxies we have, such as ice cores, such as fossilized coral, pollen, and tree rings. Climate denialism and opposition research is almost exclusively funded by those with conflicting financial or political motives, such as Art Robinson, perennial Oregon candidate, such as the Koch brothers, such as Saudi Arabia. This scientific consensus has been challenged before, but those challenges have never held up under scientific scrutiny. The most famous of which recently was a claim from Senator James Inhofe that 700 scientists have come forward to reject this scientific consensus on climate change. However,
18 minutes.
Oh, that's a minute?
You can
Sorry.
finish your statement.
However, a review of his list of 700 scientists revealed that less than 10% had degrees in anything related to climate science.
First and foremost, we're not climate change deniers. We very much believe in climate change. Now, in terms of what degree humans have affected that is different between the two of us. But that being said, we're talking about prioritizing the environment over natural resources, which is not smart. The environment is, as Dan said, while we prioritize resource extraction, well, first of all, they're not mutually conclusive, but then again, we're exclusive, that's what we're saying. But as we've stated, by focusing on the economy and focusing more on using the private sector rather than the federal government to fix our problems with particular climate change in particular, it will be more effective, as we've shown. The federal government does not have a history of being effective in terms of policies, such as Obamacare. So when, as Dan said also earlier, when we talk about these 10 top businesses in the country that say go green, when we focus on that, when we rely on the economy and the private sector to fix our problems rather than the federal government, more will get done.
So we have one more topic that we're quiet down. It's going to be a very, very important topic, and I know we're kind of pressing time, but if everyone could stay for that, that'd be great. So, if I could bring up the abortion teams, that'd be perfect. All right, if everyone could quiet down, should we get started?
Well, first we are advocating for the legality, keeping abortion legal. Just to clarify, we do not support abortion or think that abortion we are not taking a moral stance on abortion. We are also not taking a stance on how many weeks is appropriate, because we believe that under any law there can be restrictions. So although we say that we believe that abortion should be legal, of course there can be restrictions on how many months. We're not here to debate that, we're just here to debate the legality. And to support our fact in that we believe that the best way to decrease abortions, decrease deaths of infants and parents in unsafe ways, we should legalize it, because we've seen time and time again that as abortion has been made legal, abortion rates have gone down. In country, the true way to combat abortion is through comprehensive sex ed and through birth control methods that are productive and accessible, especially to poor women who are the ones who most often take advantage of these programs, such as Planned Parenthood. So we believe that is all.
Our team's stance is that abortion must be made illegal and remain illegal from that point forth. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who was a well-known leader of the feminist movement, said that when we consider that women are treated as property, it is degrading to women that we should treat our children as property, to be disposed of as we see fit. Her statement is echoed by women and men across America. Unless it constitutes a legitimate threat to the mother's life, abortion must be illegal. When measured against the law, abortion violates existing U.S. legislation and UN treaties. Even the legal principles used to uphold cases such as Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton are inconsistent and flawed. On a moral level, abortion has proven to be discriminatory, anti-feminist, and ethically repugnant. It has historically been associated with eugenics and is largely condemned by the rest of the Judeo-Christian world. Even with all this aside, abortion is murder of an innocent human life, whether legal or not, and cannot reasonably be accepted. Our opponents have the belief that the life that begins at conception does not deserve the same legal protection that is afforded to our citizens. We disagree. We believe that having life, that life is of worth at all stages and should be treated as such under the law.
Okay, so you'll have 18 minutes to debate the question of should abortion be illegal. I will give you a 5-minute warning, which is a warning that you should start wrapping up and start your closing statements. So your time starts now.
I just wanted to clarify, you said in your statement that we believe that life doesn't begin at conception and that those fetuses, I don't want to put that in quotes, but that those, fetuses don't deserve the same rights as living citizens like we all are. That's not what we said. I feel like we clarified that in our opening statement. So just to get that out there, that's not what we're talking about in the debate. We're strictly talking about the legalization. Should it remain legal or should it not?
And we have lots of evidence to support, not only in the United States, but within countries worldwide, that by making abortion legal, less abortions happen. The abortion rate does not increase with it being legal. And there's so many things to support that. Further, there is no way to enforce abortions not happening if you make it illegal. We can see in the countries that have the most restrictive abortion laws, where it's very hard to get abortion, very rare cases, sometimes not allowed at all. In Latin American countries, those are the places with the rates of highest abortion. For example, in Brazil, where it's almost nearly illegal. I don't know if there's any exceptions, but it's a very conservative policy. They have, I think it's 1 million. They have very high abortion rates, and I have statistics to back that up. And also we can see that, for example, in countries such as Switzerland, where they have more liberal abortion policies, the abortion rate is 5 women per 1,000 women, whereas in Pakistan, where it's because of their religion, it's very, very hard to get an abortion. Rates are much higher, 50 per 1,000 women. But we do see so much evidence that as we make birth control more accessible and more inexpensive, it not only saves us money with the money that we spend to make birth control free, it saves our government money because it saves a lot of things that come with having a child and the process of having a birth, but it also decreases abortion. So we believe that we should decrease abortion. We don't like abortion, but we've seen time and time again that making it legal doesn't do that.
We strongly disagree. We believe that the evidence supports our claims. If you look at countries like Venezuela or other countries like that, sure, you may find that. We're arguing about countries that are part of the Western world, for lack of a better term, more developed countries. Countries like Ireland, where they've passed laws to try and prohibit abortion the best they can. Approximately 15 to 25, not 100, not 1,000, just 15 to 25 abortions have been occurring in Ireland for the past about 10 years since passing that legislation. If you look at Malta, you've seen similar drops. If you've looked at, so what's the other one? If you look at Poland, you see similar ones. And not only are abortions dropping incredibly, maternal deaths are dropping incredibly, because illegal abortions also go down when you make abortion illegal or very near to it.
First of all, I'd like to hear your sources, because my sources that I found that support the fact that legalization decreases abortion were published in 2019 by the Guttmacher Institute, which you can research, very reputable, and this is the main thing that they research. And just to back up what you were saying about first world countries and abortion rates, there's lots that goes the other way too. Like I said, Switzerland, 5 per 1,000 women. US is 13 per 1,000 women, and Great Britain, where it's very liberal, is also about the same rate as the US. And then, Colombia and Mexico increased about 34, and Pakistan increased even more. And then we see as well, another thing is that it's hard to enforce. So there are new drugs as time goes on, and there are more innovations, there are more drugs, even legal drugs, that can be used to facilitate abortions. And oftentimes when those abortions do take place, although it used to be that illegal abortions were done by a doctor, right? Now women can do it on their own. So in places such as, like I was saying, Latin America, such as El Salvador, Chile, they've seen a huge rise in this. that they're taking drugs that are causing abortions. They go into the doctor, it looks the same as a miscarriage. They don't know if it's a miscarriage or an abortion. At that point, it used to be that the doctors were charged, right, with the abortion because they were the ones performing it. It's not that way anymore. Technology has advanced, medicine has advanced, and methods of abortion also have advanced with that. And because of that, the law no longer has the same impact that it once did. So now, for example, poor women are targeted by doctors saying that they were having abortions. So the whole point is that there's no way to enforce this law, and it would just increase unsafe abortions.
Okay, I have a question there. You say that morality is not connected to this debate, or that we will not debate it, but how can morality and legality not be intertwined? Should we legalize rape because some people are just going to do it anyways? Should we legalize murder? There is no way to debate the legality without including the morality, because without laws that we put in place, we're not going to have a moral country. Just because people break laws doesn't mean that laws shouldn't exist.
Well, the thing is, when you talk about rape victims, what were the other crimes you mentioned?
Murder, burglary.
Yeah, same thing. Rape victims, murder victims, those are living people. Abortion does not target living people. When you are born, hold on, when you are born, your life starts right there. We can debate about that all you want, but when you come out of your mom, we don't say, oh, this is my 9-month-old baby. You say your baby's life starts right there. The census doesn't count unborn persons. You know, so that's kind of a tricky subject. I know morality and legality, we can debate that all day long, but we're talking about the fact that abortion is a women's health issue. It's a safety issue. And we could prevent so many maternal injuries and death by keeping it regulated and safe. It's a health issue is where we're coming from.
And can I also say that I'm not throwing my partner under the bus, but I personally, and it is, what I'm saying is that abortion, you can have lots of moral stances on it that are separate from your legal stance. It is a moral issue, I agree. I believe that abortion is immoral. I would never get abortion. I would never support anyone getting an abortion. Maybe in the sense of rape or incest. Okay, I stand with the church 100%. I do not believe in abortion. I believe that life begins in the womb. I believe that's a living person, and I believe that they have rights and should be protected. However, along with how I'm opposed to abortion, I've researched this extensively and learned that the best way to oppose abortion isn't making it legal. There's so many other things that have been more productive. And so as a person who wants to decrease abortions, I'm going to research and find the ways that abortions have and will be decreased.
Yeah, can I clarify something really quick? I also, not pro-abortion. I know my statement might have come off really harsh, but I'm not pro-abortion. I'm not going to get an abortion myself personally, but I do support a woman's right to make that decision herself because she is a living person. It's her life on the line, and there are a lot of factors that go into the decision of making an abortion. So, like I was saying, I support the legalization and the need to keep it legal.
So while I will give you the fact that the law does not look at a fetus currently as a life, we don't count it in a census like you were saying. Oh, and just as a side note, you want to know where my sources were coming from. Those were UN reports, and then for Poland it was their own government agencies. But specifically, you say that if we legally regard that as life at birth, then that means fetuses should have, maybe not the same, but less protections. While I can understand the logic of it, it doesn't hold up considering that fetuses do have legal protection in the United States. There's the Unborn Victims of Violence Act, which was signed by George W. Bush, which recognizes children in utero defined as members of the species Homo sapiens at any stage of development who is carried in the womb. These are legal victims if they are injured or killed in federal crimes. Now we can also look at the UN, where there is the Declaration of the Rights of the Child, which protects every child. It says every child shall enjoy all the rights set forth in this declaration. Every child without exception whatsoever shall be entitled to these rights without distinction or discrimination on account of race, color, sex, birth. It goes on to list many more qualifications. These children are protected from discrimination, which abortion is very discriminatory and has been marketed towards people of color. It is very immoral, and because it is immoral, we should do things to try and make it illegal, because our laws should reflect our morals. We all want to decrease abortion, and I'm glad about that. But I believe it would be immoral to say, let's try and make it as easy as possible to have to make it go down.
I also have a note to say about Amanda's statement when she said that she believes in women's right to choose what to do with their own bodies. But as of my last experience being a woman, I actually don't have 2 heads and 20 fingers. So I think that's a very
I would just like to say that before having this debate, we decided that our arguments would not go into moral realms because I believe abortion is immoral, and I agree with you on everything that you
I
said.
feel like it's a tangent.
Yes, and I agree with you, so there's no debate. Abortion is immoral, and I do not want abortion. That is why I'm advocating for the legality of abortion, because it goes down. And that's all the stuff that I prepared. I do not believe that abortion is moral. I believe it is discriminatory sometimes because it's lower income women. That can go into a whole other thing, but it's true, there's a lot of issues with the people who get abortions, and a lot of that comes with the fact that there is not comprehensive sex ed and birth control methods, which have been shown time and time again to decrease abortions. And it's not my moral argument, it's not my opinion, it's just numbers, and I am arguing this because I don't like abortion, and because I believe, and I've seen in other countries, in our country, and with new methods of decreasing abortion, such as birth control, that it has worked and has decreased abortion. And that's why I'm advocating this, is so that there will be less abortions in the world.
I just had a question I wanted to pose to you guys so I can make sure we're all on the same page. It's kind of a two-part question. So you're saying abortion should be illegal, overturn Roe v. Wade, correct?
Well, overturning Roe v. Wade wouldn't make abortion illegal, but yes, yeah, sure.
So make abortion illegal. I guess I'm just wondering what you would suggest the process would be. Could we pass overnight a law saying, never mind, what we've been following since 1973 is now illegal? How would we make sure that that's being enforced? And what will we do to all those women who have been making the decision or who would have made the decision to get abortions? Because if we look at before the legalization of abortion, like, women were still getting abortions, and they were getting them in terrible, horrible ways. They were jumping down flights of stairs. They were, a little emotional. They were inserting items like knitting needles, or coat hangers, or bicycle spokes. They were putting items into their bodies that could cause serious harm and death along with an abortion. How would you say we could make abortion illegal? What would that process look like?
I think just as a side note, I think it's interesting that you say that when women were performing abortions on themselves, they cause serious harm and death. I think that's what happens in every abortion.
Well, actually, no. A woman's risk of dying from having an abortion is 0.6 in 100,000. I mean,
we were speaking of the child.
And I would like to clarify. Okay, I'm agreeing on this, so there's no burn because I agree with you. Yes, a child is harmed, and I think that is bad. It is bad to harm children. I do not like abortions, and you're completely right in everything that you just said. I would just like to clarify that there's going to be abortion either way, right? There's abortion under it being legal, and there's abortion under being legal. It does not change whether it's legal or not. The difference is that the baby, will not. I do not want to go into details of what could happen in someone trying. I'm not saying it's good for women to do these things, but they happen, and they're going to happen regardless. There's no way to outlaw alcohol and acid and all like needles. You know, it's going to happen, and it's happened in every country that I've researched. Anyway, basically you have abortion under the law, with it being legal, and there's abortion without being legal. Rates the same, might vary slightly. Sometimes it's better. Well, just assume the same. But when it's being legal, there are less women that die. There's going to be less children that have bad experiences with that. It's going to be safer overall. So the only thing that would change if we made it illegal was that women would die more, and it would cost, I mean, if you want to talk about cost, it would cost our nation more money. It would cause a lot of additional problems. It would not change the amount of children that live or die, because I'm not advocating for that at all, and I agree with you that life starts in the womb, and that abortion is killing a child.
Okay, so there are a number of things that I want to respond to on some things that you brought up. So first off, I do believe that birth control is the best way to fight abortion, which is why Planned Parenthood and other abortion clinics across the country do provide birth control. It's also why crisis pregnancy centers across America provide birth control. It also happens to be that birth control is incredibly cheap. I did a quick 2-minute Google search. Condoms are about 50 cents to $1 each. A month's worth of the pill, $10. These things are cheaper than ever and more accessible than ever.
But they fail.
Yeah,
No,
nothing,
5 minutes left.
nothing
so
is
it's
100% effective except for complete abstinence or abortion, yes.
Well, there's different methods of birth control. So there's the pill, right?
Right.
Typical thing. 8% of cases doesn't work.
Mhm.
Although it's low, that can still lead to abortions.
Right.
The thing that can prevent abortions more is IUDs. Those are super expensive, hundreds to thousands of dollars even, for an IUD. That, therefore, most poor women are not going to want to pay for, who are the ones who are having abortions because
Or won't
they're
be
in,
able to pay for it.
or won't be able to pay for it. Yeah, they're in a system that sets them up for this unwanted pregnancy. That's a whole other thing about poverty that we could go into, but basically having the government pay for these IUDs seems extremely expensive right off the bat, right? They're very expensive, but they're way more effective, and in the end, it would save our government so much money. It would save us on welfare, it would save us on all like these births that they have performed and medical insurance. It would save our economy, and I have statistics to back it up, that it would save our money much more to provide IUDs for women. It would decrease abortion, save money for the economy, just a positive thing overall. And it would increase, it would create better lives for these young girls too, especially, you know.
Yes, and we have no argument
Yeah.
with that. We agree. There is no argument on birth control. The argument is what happens after a woman is pregnant with a child and whether we're going to legalize that and accept euthanasia in our country, because that's what it is.
We do want to tackle the subject of people who are dying because of dangerous abortions, illegal abortions prior to Roe v. Wade. We have organizations such as NARAL, which I gotta be honest, I don't remember what it stands for. They changed the name of their acronym many times, but it's a very pro-abortion organization. Dr. Bernard Nathanson, the co-founder of it, said, "Oh yeah, how many deaths were we talking about when abortion was illegal? We generally emphasize the drama of the individual case, not the mass statistics. But when we spoke of the latter, it was always 5,000 to 10,000 deaths a year. I confess that I knew the figures totally false. And I suppose that others did too if they stopped to think of it. But in the morality of our revolution, it was a useful figure, widely accepted. So not only are most of the deaths prior to Roe v. Wade due to illegal abortions a lie, that's in fact immoral and is changing our discussion that we're having. We also look at Dr. Mary Calderon, the former medical director for Planned Parenthood. She estimated that 9 out of 10 illegal abortions were performed by doctors. That means they're incredibly safe. Now, that doesn't mean that they should be good. It doesn't mean that they should be legal. Abortion is immoral, and because of the immorality of it, we must tie that to legality. Rape isn't illegal because of harmful side effects. It's illegal because it's immoral. Same with any other crime on the book, and that is why abortion should be illegal.
We also believe that abortion is immoral and should be done away with. But as we've seen in lots of issues, also in stances held by the Republican Party, that we don't create legislation, we create legislation that will help morality. Making something legal or illegal doesn't change what people do. People's decisions are based on their minds and their hearts and their decisions, not on what the law is. And we've seen that in all of these studies that show that in countries where it's made illegal, it doesn't change. The times that it does change when there's education, when people learn about the risks of abortion, when people when people learn that there's options to take care of their children's childcare. The changes that happen are not because of the law. It's because of society and the way that we treat this issue. And that's the thing that I believe is an issue, is that we're putting it on the law. And this discussion is based a lot around, is it legal, is it not legal, rather than things that have proven to actually change the issue. And I think it's time that we take this down from being a partisan or a legal, not legal issue versus what has proven to decrease abortions. I think that that's a societal, a systemic thing that changes people's minds as opposed to what's written in the law.
I will push back very hard on that. Something that was brought up last round is the issue of